Hello, everyone. Welcome once again to our Produce Spotlight class. And here we are at the last Tuesday in September. Can you believe it? I know I can't. I'm Shayna, one of the dietitians with Giant. So glad to have you along with us today for this class, where for the whole month of September in our Produce Spotlight class, we have been talking all about sheet pan produce. So if you have missed out on Tuesdays earlier in the month, make sure you check out our YouTube channel for those other segments. But we thought it would be fun to do this twist on Produce Spotlight so you could learn all about those vegetables that do really well on a sheet pan in the oven, whether that is accompanied by some protein and other veggies, or they're just the star of your meal and you roast those up, okay? So today in particular, we're gonna focus on carrots, all right? And we are gonna start off with all you'd care to know about carrots. Did you like that little thing I did there? Yeah. Okay. So we're gonna start off with that. Then we're gonna go over some sheet pan tips. All right, that might be a bit of a review if you've been hanging out with us all month, but I want to give you guys some tips and guidance on if you are gonna roast a lot of veggies, how to do that in the oven. And then we'll get on to our featured recipe for today, which is a sheet pan apricot chicken meal with carrots. And then we're going to make a side dish today to go with that, and that is going to be with Simply Potatoes. Simply Potatoes is a really great fresh refrigerated potato brand that we carry in our stores. Jenna has highlighted them already in our Feature Friday classes, so you can check out that to learn more about them. But we're going to give them a nice little shout out here today because they're going to go perfectly with this meal that we are making. All right, so as promised, all you cared to know about carrots here. Carrots are a root vegetable. So if you've never really known what that meant, I don't blame you, I hear you. But if we think about it logically, a root vegetable means that it is the root of the vegetable. It's the part of the vegetable that grows underground. The carrot top is what you see above the ground. So the carrot itself underground is what we're going to be using today, but you could totally use those carrot greens in other fashions, maybe to put into a stock or a broth, those types of things. So don't just go throwing those away, all right? They can have a purpose too. Now, the first recorded or depicted carrots were predominantly purple, okay? Actually, there's been some researchers who have said that they have seen pictures of carrots on Egyptian walls and things of that nature. And once again, they started out being purple. And then Dutch growers cultivated the orange carrot in the 17th century. So now we have everything from orange to purple and in between with yellow, white, and red as well. California is the top carrot producer in the United States, but carrots are, of course, grown everywhere. If you yourself grow carrots, that's pretty cool too. I have never done that. I've grown some other veggies, but not carrots. But yeah, there's your fun facts about carrots today. Now, why do we want to incorporate them into our diet, right? And I really wanted to focus on the color aspect because we just talked about how there are so many different ones. I hope that you have tried the different colors before, and if you haven't, now is definitely the time to do it. I'll show you some products that you can grab in our stores here in a bit. But we'll start off with that most common one, that bright orange color that you think about with carrots. That comes from beta carotene. Beta carotene is something that converts in our body to vitamin A. And vitamin A, you've probably heard about it before, is really great for our eyesight. All right, we want to get in loads of vitamin A for that reason. Now, some other colors to touch base on in their nutrients. When you have the orange carrots, but also yellow carrots, they're getting their color tones from lutein. Also another factor that's really great for eye health. Followed by that, we have lycopene. So lycopene, we think of tomatoes often with lycopene or watermelon. It is that nutrient that gives things that reddish type of hue, also a little bit onto the purple spectrum as well. And lycopene may potentially help decrease the risk of heart disease as well as certain cancers. Similar to that, we have anthocyanins, my favorite. because it's what gives food its purple color. And I love purple foods. I just think that they're so fun. But like I said, very similar to lycopene in the sense that it may help decrease the risk of heart disease and certain cancers. So I know it sounds cliche. We say all the time to eat the rainbow, but here it is laid out for you just with rainbow carrots about how you can get all of these other wonderful nutrients that affect different parts of your body if you really try to gravitate to all of the different colors. Why else do we want to include carrots into our day? They can be a really great low calorie snack or addition to a meal like we're doing today. Um, Fiber. Okay, fiber, of course, is going to be a big one for a lot of fruits and veggies, and carrots are no less there. So, fiber is going to be important in our day because it may potentially help lower our cholesterol. But also, if we're thinking about that snack time that I just mentioned, or even in meals, fiber is one of those things that helps to make us feel more full. So if our snack or our meal is lacking fiber, we might start to feel hungry shortly after. So carrots can help us along with that. Now, I feel like we get questions often about carrots and carbs. All right. So I wanted to take a moment to chat about that. Carrots are a bit of a higher carb vegetable. Now, what I mean by that, carbohydrates are naturally occurring sugars in foods. All right. Now, carrots are a vegetable. They're not technically considered as a starchy vegetable like potatoes or corn would be. They're kind of in that middle of a road between potatoes and corn over here and say like broccoli or salad over here. All right. Carrots are kind of in between in terms of how much natural sugar that they contain. But the thing to keep in mind about that and why we don't want to veer away from carrots is because although they might have a little bit more carbs than say broccoli, they have a very low glycemic index, which means that those natural sugars that are in carrots, they really shouldn't have too huge of an impact on your blood sugar. All right, so something to think about if you are diabetic and you've played around with the idea of including carrots or not. I think that they can still be a great one to add into snacks or meals. Okay. So here are some different items that we carry in our stores in the way of carrots. I am all about the matchstick carrots. I feel like they are a great throw in to salads, to coleslaws, toppers on a burger, anything like that. So I think that those ones are pretty fun. I am also really big on the ones that we have here in the middle, and I know that Kylene is too, one of the other dietitians. These are a great grab and go type situation if you're on the way to a party or get together or are just looking for a nice convenience items for your kids' lunches. These carrot and celery sticks, really perfect. It is tailgating season, so this is a perfect one to pair along with like wings or any type of buffalo dish that you have. And then right next to this, I know that this is one of Jenna's favorite, another dietitian on our team, the carrot chips. She's all about them. And why wouldn't you be, right? They look like a chip. They have that vibe of a chip, but they are a carrot. Really perfect to dip into something like hummus, or maybe you make a yogurt ranch type dressing to pair them with. So a nice item there. A good way to maybe introduce carrots to kids as well. If they're not a big fan, that could maybe get them on board a little bit more. Whoops, went the wrong way there. Okay. Also two really great products to keep in your freezer or in the pantry. We do have crinkle cut frozen carrots. These are a great one to toss into a soup or a casserole or just make as a side. Similar to that would be our canned carrots over here. We do carry our canned carrots in a no salt added variety. So if we are watching our blood pressure and sodium, those would be a great one to pick up there. A couple of fun, unique carrot products that we have in our store. I have mentioned these before, the Bolt House carrot shakers. They are a newer item within the past couple months that you can find in produce. Really neat. Inside of that big bag, you have 5 individual bags, and those individual bags have a seasoning packet. where you open the bag and that seasoning comes out, you shake it around like the name implies, and you have some nicely seasoned carrots. So this one is the zesty ranch flavor. We also have a dill pickle flavor. So those are a fun one to try. Once again, something fun for the kids as well. I really want to try this one here in the middle. I will be honest. I am here shouting from the rooftops about carrots, but I'm not a big fan. I'm not a big carrot person, okay? But I do love hot honey, and I do always try carrots in different ways. So I definitely would be all about these from the Alexia brand, these hot honey carrots. And then to the right of that, we have another item from Bolt House with the rainbow colored carrots. Once again, another way to get the kids on board. All right. So switching gears a bit from our carrots and talking about how we're going to prepare them today on the sheet pan. Okay, we'll go into some sheet pan produce tips. I'm just going to turn my my stove top on here to get that nice and warm for when we start cooking here momentarily. We are making one thing on the stove. Okay, so some produce tips for your sheet pan. Number one, we want to make sure that things are uniform in the way that we cut them, okay? So the more we can cut our vegetables into a uniform shape and size, the more evenly that they should cook, okay? Next tip here, we want to make sure that that item is very dry, okay? So if you have just washed your produce, you want to make sure that it is nice and dry, because if it's not, then when it goes in the oven, that moisture on there is going to cause your vegetable to steam rather than to roast. So you're going to get a different texture and vibe if you don't have them dry. And that's a big thing to note about frozen vegetables, okay? If you are going to roast frozen vegetables, which you absolutely can, you do not want to thaw them first, okay? You want them to be intact and frozen, so that way when they go in the oven and they start to thaw, it's being evaporated right away by all of that heat that's in the oven, all right? If you let it thaw, once again, too much moisture. There's some different thoughts about this. This would be my produce tip about sheet pans. And that's in terms of putting your veggies in a bowl first and tossing them with the oil and the seasoning that the recipe may call for. Sometimes folks just put them all on the pan and do it that way. You know, it's one less dish, but I think that you're going to get a more even coat if you toss them in the bowl first. And then lastly, in terms of space, once again, to really get that roasted vibe, we need to make sure that the produce is in a single layer and it's spread out on the sheet pan, so that way there's optimal air circulation around that produce item. Just in terms of roasting in general, a couple of tips regarding time and temp. It's sometimes ideal to preheat your pan. Okay, so as your oven is preheating, pop your pan in there, because then when you go to put your veggies on, it gives them an extra little sizzle. You can oil the pan, or you can use parchment paper. This picture here is what I love to use in the way of parchment paper. It is just a pre-cut, pre-measured slice of parchment paper that fits right perfectly onto your sheet pan. So definitely pick up those. Typically, when we are roasting something in the oven, we do it at a range from 400 to 475. 400 to 425 is usually most common. You'll see that these parchment papers are good up to 425. So that's a good rule of thumb to help you remember that. In terms of how long do you bake it, it really depends on what you're roasting. It can go anywhere from 10 minutes to an hour, depending on the density of the vegetables. So your less dense veggies, things like asparagus, zucchini, peppers, they could potentially only take as little as 10 minutes. Whereas your more dense vegetables, like a root vegetable, we're talking carrots today, butternut squash, potatoes, those types of things could be more closer to an hour. So it really depends. Do some, online searching to get some tips about whatever particular veggie that you're using to figure that out, okay? So here we are. I know we've rambled a lot, but here is our recipe for today. The links are here for this apricot chicken with carrots. Doesn't it look lovely? Here are the ingredients that we are going to be using today. I will dive more into them in a moment. But I wanted to point out the directions and how I am changing the directions a little bit, as well as the ingredients, okay? So these are the recipe changes that I'm going to be making today. I will talk more about them as we go along, but I want to point out right away that I am going to be cutting the recipe in half. I feel like that may work well for you if you're cooking for just one or two, not really in the mood for a bunch of leftovers. Also, instead of using the chicken leg quarters, I am using boneless chicken thighs. So because of that, our cooking time is going to decrease. Since there's no bone, rather than having to cook these for an hour, it's only going to take about a half hour. Also, specifically towards the carrots, I did not get the medium carrots because I'm all about convenience. I just got baby carrots, so we don't have to cut those up further. And this is one of those recipes that does suggest that you just toss it with the oil right on the pan. But like I said, I prefer to do that in a bowl. So those are the changes that we are making today. And then also today, like I mentioned, we are going to be pairing this with some Simply potatoes. So you can see here that Simply Potatoes has some different varieties from diced potatoes to shredded potatoes. And I have a question for you guys. Gonna pull up the poll here. I want to know, in the way of potatoes, which potato team are you on? Do you prefer the diced or the cube style or shredded? Maybe it depends on what type of meal you're pairing it with. Today we're doing like a lunch dinner situation. Maybe you might feel differently at breakfast. If I were to have to pick one, I love shredded potatoes. Love, love, love them. We're using the dice today because I do feel like it goes a bit better with the vibe of our recipe, but I'm all about the shredded potatoes for sure. So I'm excited to use these today. I'm going to end the poll here. A lot of you are on team diced potato. It's okay. At least you'll love what we're making today, then, right? But yeah, thanks for playing along with me with that one. If you are wondering where to pick these up in our stores, they are refrigerated. In my store, you'll find them in the meat section. So like above where you would find the bacon, they're going to be above that. And you'll find them right there. Okay. So we're going to start with the potatoes here. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and we're going to go over to our ingredients. Just a moment here. Okay, over here you should see my ingredients that we got all set up ready to go. Like I said, we're going to start with making our Simply Potatoes side because they need to cook in my pan for about 12 minutes. Now, I'm going to pan over to my pan. I did this yesterday. We'll just move over, okay? And then we'll come back to those ingredients. I have my pan already warmed on medium, okay? And I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of canola oil. Now, you could roast these potatoes in the oven with the rest of our meal if you would like. But I felt like my pan was already pretty crowded when I made this recipe earlier. So I didn't want to add them in. I kind of wanted to just do them as their own little thing in the pan to make sure that they got nice and crispy as they're supposed to be. Okay, so I have that heated pan on medium. I just added my 2 tablespoons of canola oil. And now I'm going to go ahead and add my potatoes in. Okay. Let me give these a quick little mix. Excuse my reach. Okay. We'll get those all spread out. And then we are going to cover with the lid. Okay. Like I said, and these are going to cook for about 12 minutes. I'm going to keep an eye on them. And we will come back and give them another toss in a few minutes, okay? But while they are cooking, let's go back over to what we are making today with the chicken and the carrot, okay? So I have my sheet pan here. You can see I have one of those pop-up parchment papers right on my pan. And as I said, I'm going to be using the boneless, skinless chicken thighs rather than the leg quarters. So let me get those ready for us to prep first. I am going to place them directly onto my sheet pan in the middle here. Okay, I did trim a bit of the fat off of these already. Okay, just a moment. There we go. All right. And I am going to just spread these out a bit more, and we're going to season them up with a little bit of salt and pepper if you would like. You could hold the salt if you wanted to. And some paprika, okay? So do some pepper on here. Okay, a little bit of salt, not a lot, right? Just a little to give it a little something. And then we'll really get in here with the paprika, okay? The paprika is going to give the chicken a nice golden color as it bakes and just really give it a nice flavor pop as well, okay? All right, so we got our chicken seasoned and prepped there. Now I'm going to move this to the side and we will work with our carrot. Okay, like I said, I'm going to toss my carrots in a bowl here. I wanted to show you what carrots I picked up today to do this. So once again, we are cutting the recipe in half. The recipe calls for 2 pounds of carrots. This is a 2-pound bag. So if you're making the whole recipe, use the whole bag. I am only going to be using half the bag. And why I really wanted to show this to you guys is because this 2-pound bag is resealable, which I think is like just dynamite when it comes to stuff like this and keeping it fresh. And then you don't have to get out one of your own plastic bags to put them in. I just really like that feature. Okay, so I wanted to show that to you guys. Come on, little carrot. It doesn't want to get cooked. There we go. All right. So now in the bowl here, I'm going to do a tablespoon of olive oil. Okay. And then once again, season these up a bit with the salt and pepper. So quick little bit of pepper and a little bit of salt. Not much. Okay. And then we're just going to toss these so they're nice and evenly coated with that olive oil, the seasoning, and we're good to go. Okay. So let's bring back our chicken right here. Now we're going to spread our carrots out. Oops. I'll go around like this here. Okay, spread our carrots out evenly. Remember we just talked about with our sheet pan tips that you want to have a nice single layer so there's no overcrowding and they cook nice and evenly. Okay, so let me spread these out a bit more. There we go. Okay. So see what I mean? On my size of sheet pan, I wouldn't have been able to do the potatoes one here. It just would have been too much. All right. Okay. So, but we're not done. Okay. We're going to move that to the side and we're going to work on that apricot glaze for our chicken. I am just going to stir our potatoes real quick. They're starting to look good. I can show you guys in a moment. Here we go. Potatoes are cooking, looking good. Okay. Gonna put the lid back on them now that I've given them a toss. and we'll get into that apricot jam, okay? So, once again, I'm cutting the recipe in half. So the original recipe calls for half a cup of apricot preserves. I'm using a quarter of a cup. So let me get that going here for us. I love apricot preserves or jelly. It's a jelly that I've made before, mixed with cherries. It's just one of those really good ones. Okay. I think it can be lovely on a dish like this, on a biscuit or an English muffin. Just a nice one. Okay. So we have that quarter of a cup of our apricot preserves in there. And now we are going to do a half a tablespoon of Dijon mustard. Recipe once again called for a whole tablespoon. We're doing the half. Dijon mustard is one of those things that you'll see often in a chicken recipe, a salmon recipe. I feel like it's a good one for these sheet pan meals because it really gives the dish an extra punch of flavor. And we are also going to do a teaspoon of apple cider vinegar. Okay. And we are then going to finish it off with some dried thyme. Recipe calls for fresh thyme. I just like to use the dried. I keep that on hand. I'm just going to eyeball, sprinkling some in here. About a teaspoon is what we're looking for. A little less. We're going to give that a mix. And then once this is all mixed up, which is looking pretty good, I'm going to bring my chicken dish back. And we're going to spoon this over top of our chicken. Now, only half of it, okay? You're going to reserve the other half for halfway through the cooking time, okay? So you get your oven preheated to 400. You're going to put half of this glaze on. And like I said, we've reduced the cooking time because we're using boneless chicken thighs now. So rather than having to do this for a whole hour, our total cook time is about a half hour. So in 15 minutes, you're going to open your oven and put the remaining bit of this glaze on. All right. So this is going to help to soak into the chicken while it cooks and keep it moist. And then that next layer of glaze is going to be that flavor pop on top. All right. So that is what we're going to do there. Like I said, you pop this in your oven at 400. Now we're going to do a little bit of TV magic. I've already made some. So let me pull that out for you guys. All right, it is looking good. It is smelling good. There it is. How lovely does that look? I'm telling you guys, the smell of it is delish. Okay, so there it is. If you can hang on with me, I know we're at 12:30, but let's go ahead and plate this up. All right. So let me move this to the side. Get our plate here. Our potatoes are still cooking. They should be good here in a moment. Let's get a piece of this chicken. Okay, sorry, pardon my reach. Okay, we'll put that here. And we'll get some of these carrots on the plate with it. Now, I don't know if you could tell when I had it over there that apricot glaze, it really kind of drips down and onto the carrots. So they're getting a bit of that flavor on there as well. Okay, so more here. Okay, good. And now let's check on our potatoes. Okay, I'm I'm gonna just season our potatoes up a little bit with pepper and just a dash of salt, not too much, but a little bit there. Okay, they are sizzling, looking good, smelling good. I know I'm keeping you guys in suspense. Just give me a moment here. Okay. I'm actually also going to add a little bit of that thyme. Where did my thyme go? Maybe. Or maybe a little paprika. I was gonna say it's like that. There it is. A little bit of the thyme that we put in the apricot glaze. Let's just carry that over to these potatoes. Give them a little extra something. Okay. And now we will spoon some of those on over here. Like so. Okay. And there we have our nice little chicken, carrot, and potato dish. Delish. I am so looking forward to that. I think it looks delicious. It's going to be great. Okay. So let me bring my other screen back up here for you guys. Just a moment. There we go. Okay. I'm going to share my screen here for you one more time, just so you can see what is coming up the rest of this week. I will be back again tomorrow on Wednesday. We're talking all about sunflower power. So how including sunflower seeds and other products into our day can be beneficial. Thursday, we do not have class. Friday morning, Kylene will be joining me for a very special coffee chat all about us being in our orange era. And then if you haven't already signed up for our in-person well-being workshop at the Willow Grove Giant on Saturday, make sure you do that. The registration link will be included in today's follow-up email. But I wanted to thank you guys so much for hanging out with me. I hope you take care the rest of the day and the week, but come back and hang out with me tomorrow too, okay? At this time, I'm going to go ahead and close our recording and check out whatever questions might be in our Q&A.